Well, welcome to the Communication Mastery Podcast. Welcome back. And today got a very special treat. We've got a three-way conversation today for our episode. And so I've got with me Tim Viechec and also Colden Blades. And we're going to talk around the whole idea of relationship and how we communicate with one another to help one another. I know these two guys have really developed a relationship where they gain from their conversations and their interactions. And I've had the same relationship with Colden where I've really gained from interacting. And I'm looking forward to learning from you a bit, Tim, as well, because this is the first time we've met. And so we're going to talk around that whole area of relationships and communication. And so, well, Tim, it's great to have you with us. And so for the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you at now and how did you get there?
Okay, interesting story. Right now, I am a business owner. I own a fitness studio that focuses primarily on 55 plus. So, I had this vision, this dream for probably 5 or 6 years that I went through a transformation myself, lost 50 pounds, and wanted to be able to do that for others, but really wanted to create a safe haven for people who normally don't like walking into gyms or anything like that. So we don't even like to use the word gym, even though we have a full service gym. Former businessman who was in the corporate world for 45 years, decided to do a crazy thing at 60 years old and retire and open a fitness studio. And move to Myrtle Beach.
Okay, yeah, that's quite a change.
Yes.
Quite a change. So I love the approach that you want to feel non-threatening and welcoming to to that particular demographic, the over 55s, which I guess is where I'm at.
Lots of people are.
Exactly, that's true. So what have you had to adjust in your approach to be able to be more welcoming, more open? How have you packaged that? How have you communicated that?
Well, my career has always taught me that it's about an experience, that people today want an experience, whatever it is. Even when you go buy coffee, you now want an experience with your coffee. So that was one thing that kind of led me to, okay, how do I create an experience of inclusion or comfort or whatever when you walk in? And I believe we've done that just by the choices of colors, design, floor. I have a waterfall when you walk in. I mean, just some little elements that we put into place that makes people feel a little non-threatening, if you will.
Right.
Most gyms, you'll find that they have big pictures of people working out and sweating and lifting heavy weights. I have people playing tennis, dancing, and in a kayak.
Okay, yeah, that's different.
Yes. Our philosophy is around three main words: move so that you can play and live.
Wonderful. I love that. So getting it really simple sounds like that's part of the key to how you've framed what you're offering.
Absolutely. Make it easy for people to come in, low barrier of entry. We have a great orientation program that gets people started, very non-threatening, no long-term commitments. And, right now we're running at a, high 60, 70% conversion rate. People do sign up for long-term because we made them feel comfortable.
That's huge, isn't it? The effort you put in to make that connection with people on their level and in the way that they can receive it,
right,
it's making the difference in the connection rate, the conversion rate.
Yes,
yeah.
It's rewarding because 2 weeks ago I had 3 ladies at separate times came up to me thanking me for opening a facility. Heavy set ladies who really felt uncomfortable going to traditional gyms, if you will.
Right, yeah.
And they found a place. I have one lady driving 45 minutes to come, which is really uncommon in the gym industry.
Sure, yeah. That's great. I love it. And so what sort of differences have you found? I mean, obviously it's a big change for you leaving the corporate world and moving to a tourist area from where you used to be. What sort of things had to adapt in you to be able to make that jump?
Well, you could imagine one of the biggest challenges was coming off of 45 years of a retail executive, corporate executive, and the amount of hours you put in. I mean, I would have 80 hours in by Wednesday. So filling all that time became challenging. So I think that's part of the reason why I became so involved in the community, with networking teams, with Colden, with just getting to know people. Because the biggest challenge for me was coming out of that kind of life into this new life. but it's like a scale, you know. There's always, in life, there's always a scale, and it goes this way. And whatever decision you're making or whatever thing you're doing, there's going to be good and bad. There's not all good or all bad to anything. And you start putting the pieces on, and you make sure that the scale doesn't tip the wrong way.
Right.
And that's what I did, and that's how I feel about the area right now, is that it tipped definitely in the favor.
Right. That's great. Now, you mentioned Colden. Let's draw him in on the conversation. How did you two meet, and what was the connection that got you started? Because he doesn't look like the kind of heavy set over 55 need a non-threatening gym.
Not yet.
So tell me the story of how you two met, and how has that developed from there?
Oh, I got to think back on that.
Oh, I can really, I remember it
for it.
clearly. It was, we connected through a videographer. We had, I was trying to get the whole thing started, and this videographer said, I know a guy who can help you with social media, because it's a landmine out there, you know, ever changing. And so he introduced me to Colden, but what really connected us was when he opened his laptop, and there was a Rolls Royce on it. And I asked him about that, and he kind of defined that, you know, he uses that as a guide point in his life about, you know, the quality of relationships or the quality of going through life that he wants. And that intrigued me. So we started talking, and, you know, we talked on a regular basis, and I got to know him a little bit more. I made sure that I made it my duty to get to know him a little bit more.
Right.
And, you know, added him to my board of directors because I thought he could be a great guiding force in Next Level.
Cool.
And so he has been for the last 2 years.
That's great.
But a Rolls Royce has connected us.
Right. Okay. That's fun. So how was that for you, Colden? You know, there's this old guy. Forgive me, Tim, but you know, I'm in the same bracket as
I
you,
agree.
so I'm comfortable using that. There's this old guy kind of, you know, looks at your laptop, sees a Rolls Royce, and says, "Will you be on my board of directors?" Okay, we're shortening the time scale a bit here, but how did you find that?
You know, it's interesting because I have always, I think, naturally gravitated towards older folks, or towards older men, just because I lack a connection with a lot of men my age. Mm-hmm. And I kind of get along with traditional, I get along with old school. But something else about Tim is the, see, don't get shit messed up about Tim's packaging. Like, he may be the 50s, 60s, you know, whatever. But in all actuality, Tim is the fire-breathing 24-year-old mentally. You know, he's got that go, go, go. I mean, what guy leaves corporate America working 100-plus hour weeks? What guy retires from that to go and start a business? Like, sits still for weeks and then thinks he has to start a business. Yeah. So I think that kind of just that mentality, that level of ambition, and like, it's not even like I know Tim, like, he's not doing it for the money. You know, a lot of people that genuinely get to know Tim realize that at some point or another, like, he didn't just launch this gym to just make a quick buck. You know, he didn't make this to make more money because he didn't save enough in retirement. You know, this is like, you know, this is a purposeful kind of project for him. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely, like, that's something I can very much jive with. I very much relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, and on reflection, I think that's why I've wanted to talk to the both of you, because I've seen that sense of purpose in what you do and how you do it that drives what you do. Neither of you are in this just to see the money come rolling in or to make a quick profit off of other people's backs. You're in this for how you can actually move people forward, contribute to others' lives, make a difference in the community, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, but it's interesting to me that that, you know, you two wouldn't necessarily have connected
in any way.
Any way, would you?
No.
And yet something clicked there, and I'd love to just help you or get you to dig in a little more, think through a little more. What exactly was it that clicked? Because it wasn't just the Rolls Royce on the laptop, was it?
No.
It wasn't just that this guy can't stay retired, he's got to do something. There's something else happened there that made you realize that there's a connection between us. And I'd love to kind of try and dig out what that is.
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing is, like, you know, to his point, it's hard for people his age, for him to really connect with people his age because they're interested in different things.
Right.
And I think where our connections started to grow was understanding where he was in his mind, because really we're the same age, okay? I'm the 25-year-old brain and mind and everything else, and he's kind of the 60-year-old, so we kind of connect. It's
right.
It's very
you just
interesting.
need to swap bodies or something.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, because I think the basis of our relationship is ultimately respect.
Good. Yeah.
Respect is where it starts. There is such a, and it's not just your average respect. It is a deeply rooted respect for each other as individuals, as just who we are. And then as we got to know each other, we also created a very strong personal relationship. So I got to know him. I got to know a little bit of his family background. He gets to know. We opened up to each other about things that most people would not be able to. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah.
And that took time. It wasn't immediate. And it was over the course of both of our life situations that we were able to share with each other and talk to each other. And I think just I understand him and he understands me.
That's cool. Yeah. Talk to me about the whole opening up and maybe getting to a deeper level of connection, Colden. How was that for you, and did that come easy? What was it about Tim that made that possible to do? Because I see this as a key thing that we need to learn to do, but it doesn't come easy to any of us.
Right.
We've just got to find those right settings. So I'd love to hear more how it was from your side.
Again, like I guess I'll go back on some of my more traditional values than most, just in general. I've always found that if there's tough things that need to be talked through, to me, I have seen generation after generation, and also feel comfortable myself with I build brotherhoods. I find that I can go to my close male friends and we can talk about stuff, because the biggest reasoning behind that is, number one, if I'm dealing with something, let's say, in my life that is challenging or difficult, I do not necessarily, the way that I'm wired, I do not need a feminine solution to a masculine problem in a lot of scenarios.
Right. Yeah.
And so I oftentimes find that the best people to go to advice for are these fellow men that I've surrounded myself with, that are like-minded, that I know that our values and our morals align as well. Mm-hmm. To me, that's once again, going back to that purpose, that's extremely important to me as well, because I need to know that, like you said with the scale, I need to know that I'm adding to the right side of that scale. I'm not getting out of balance. I'm not, going towards the dark side, whatever you want to say. So there's that proponent, as well as knowing, for me, I have a lot of male acquaintances, I guess you could say. Like, I have all these connections in business and X, Y, Z, but I have a very small, tight-knit male friend group that I would genuinely, I would break bread with in my home type thing. Right. So I think that's all part of that process, is like slowly you'll form these bonds with men, and a lot of times it comes through pain, suffering, struggle, what have you. I think that, and then laughter, of course, laughter and suffering.
It's not all pain, but
laughter and suffering is where I've bonded most with guys. So I think that kind of just like going through a certain level of experiences, ups and downs in business, talking that out, and before you know it, you're bonding or forming a brotherhood with someone that now you can, we can sit around a fire and talk shit about we can talk shit and laugh, or we can talk about my problems.
Right.
So that's
and maybe
kind of
switch between the two in
Bingo.
an instant. Yeah.
And it's very, going back as well to kind of my original point I made about, going to my male friends. The other reasoning for that as well is we can have a logical conversation about emotional issues.
Right.
To me, that's important, because I think it's when you get emotional, that's when That's when you make mistakes. Like when you get emotional, that's about something. You need to be able to you can get emotional in the moment, but it's when you're driving your decisions predicated upon that emotion is when you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
You're going to do something or say something that you don't mean.
Which will then create an issue for you that you've got to then invest a lot more time and energy in resolving.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Which, of course, is what we zero in on this podcast, is understanding the balance between the cognitive and the emotive and then the kinetic, the action side of things. And Tim, you've not had any experience with the life languages. Colden, I know you have seen your profile, and this is the coaching tool that I use most often. But
Which
it's
I want to interject one thing really quickly. I thought of this literally this morning, was the fact that I've done this test, and it's extremely intriguing. And I couldn't help but think on my way over here, you and Nick absolutely need to have a discussion with Mark about doing this test, because I was thinking about that dynamic that you two have in communication.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, he can tell you just some of the stuff that came up on my report that's really kind of helped me to even just think through some of my communication styles. Because I'm very like, I don't know, I want to get shit done. I don't want to talk about getting shit done, but I need to like know that when I'm talking to certain people. Similar with, anyway, I just think, quick interjection, I just think that you and Nick should talk to him about it.
It's a good point, because I think the other thing, Mark, and I don't know if you've seen this in your experiences, but I want to talk a little bit about differences. Okay,
Right.
That's one big thing. So as much as we talk about where we connect, the one thing that I think Colden and I have in common is we both totally respect each other's differences as well.
That's cool, because that's where I wanted to go with that thought,
Yeah.
is that you two are clearly different.
Yes.
And yet you clearly connect.
Correct.
And so that's what Colden was referring to with the you can't just act out of emotion.
Right.
You've got to have the logical side as well. You strike me as a guy who's got more emotion, maybe more available on the front end to connect with people.
Absolutely.
But you've also got the thinking in there as well. And clearly there's action involved, because you've done all the things you've done.
Yes.
And so it's fascinating to me, as a sort of an outsider to your relationship and the way you've worked together over these couple of years. It's fascinating to me to watch the way you interact and the way that you've leveraged what you bring to the picture. So talk to us more a bit about differences, Tim. What do you see, and how do you draw out differences, and how do you adapt?
Well, I'm going to really talk more about respect for differences.
Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
you really have to respect. I think there's such a low tolerance to differences today.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Right. And I think that that's one thing that I see. Just because you don't, like the same things I like, then we can't have a relationship. Well, really? Okay, there are some commonalities, and there has to be a basis for a relationship, which we have a very strong commonality. But as we learned each other, we also go in different directions on certain things. And I think it's important to try to understand each other. You talk about, emotions. I call people, there's 75, 25 people, there's 50 people. I'm more of a 70. I'm going to come 75% to you. Okay. Now, depending on your personality, if you're a 75%, that could be explosive. Right. But if you're a 25, then we have a perfect match. We're at 100%. And so I think Colden is an interesting person in that he can be very engaging, and at times he could be very aloof. It's just his personality. And
I've seen both.
Yeah. Yes. Especially in large groups. Like he's always, I think more than anything, what I noticed about Colden is he's checking out the lay of the land to decide how he should respond. So he is, in some ways he's very calculated. And he does have fairly good control of his emotions. The one thing we share is sometimes, emotions of anger. We have to work on that a little bit.
Yes.
Well, it comes in handy sometimes.
It does. Sometimes it works for you or against you, depending on what it is.
Depending on how you handle it.
But I think based on what you do and you're thinking about relationships, that's one thing that needs to be talked about, is how do we respect each other's differences?
Right. Yeah.
You come from a different walk of life than I did.
Absolutely.
A totally different country in which, but I respect that.
Right.
And I want to learn more about it. I'm more interested.
Yes. So there's that inquisitive nature
Yes.
that we can cultivate.
Yes.
What can I discover about you? How can I learn about you? How can you learn about me? How can we both learn about Colden? Because it's interesting. I first met him in a networking group where he was famous for being the guy who sat at the edge and said nothing.
Yes.
Which is not the way we normally would expect to go to a networking group.
Exactly.
And this fascinated me, and I was determined to find out what's going on with this guy who's sitting over on the edge. And so that, and so that's how we got to know one another. And it's almost like his trademark.
Yeah.
And we didn't expect this episode to turn into us both psychoanalyzing you while you're sitting watching.
I'm getting grilled over here.
Absolutely.
But what I love is that he, having studied how he's wired, he's taken advantage of that, and he's actually very interested in learning about other people.
Yeah.
And learning how to connect with other people. We've had multiple conversations of, well, how would I do this? Or how would you do that? Or this particular setting, what will we do? And it's exactly that respect and that inquisitiveness,
Yes.
I think, that you put the two together and it makes a very powerful combination.
Absolutely. And, you know, he's very focused on self-improvement. Like he's,
Absolutely.
you know, very big. And I have the same thing. You can ask him when I'm disappointed about something. The first thing I do is look in the mirror. Okay,
Yeah.
what did I do? Where too many people always want to point out other people's problems or other people's inefficiencies. But I look at myself first.
Yeah.
Whether it's a problem with the relationship or it's a problem at work, you know, you have to start with you. What did I cause?
Yeah.
Ownership. So when I talk about respecting differences, there's other things that's a problem, is people don't have ownership for their actions anymore. Somebody made me do this.
Oh, gosh.
Nobody can make you do, you know.
That's just an excuse.
Yes. Yes.
I think the self accountability component is huge
Yes.
with the mutual respect, because I can't tolerate for very long anyone who pushes blame on other people
Blame
or
shifters.
plays the victim. Me and victim mentality guys, we don't get along at all. Like I like vicious self accountability where it's like, I mean, Tim and I are both very similar in that regard. Something happens to someone we care about and we aren't really involved in no way, shape, or form could we have, you know, stopped it from happening, and it's our fault that we didn't do something that would have altered reality. You know, it's like that level of self accountability, which
Right. Yeah. Which is interesting because you're both very much aware of that in your own makeup. And so I think that self-accountability has to be combined with self-awareness. Otherwise it becomes just, you know, regret or you get stuck in a cycle of beating yourself up for something you should have done or could have done. But if you've got the self-awareness to figure out, this is where this fits into my wiring. That's what I see in both of you, is you're aware of how you're wired.
That's that you just said probably the most important word of this whole conversation, is that self-awareness.
Right.
That is hugely lacking in this world today.
Absolutely.
So when you do find someone who has that self-awareness and knows exactly who they are and who they aren't, that's the other part.
Yeah.
You know, he's sat in many conversations with me, and I tell him where I'm missing or where I'm not hitting the mark and what I wish I could have done differently. Self-awareness that's a key. That's a key.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think it's the starting point. That's where I begin whenever I have a new client or a new business, is we've got to help people gain some self-awareness of how they're wired.
Right.
Which is why, you know, Colden mentioned the life language profile. What I love about it is it gives you a snapshot of how you're wired, so that you can actually build from there. It doesn't constrain you. It doesn't limit you. It doesn't. It's not prescriptive in that way. It's descriptive, but it doesn't force you to stick to that. It just shows you where you're at. You know, kind of like the speedometer on the dashboard shows you how fast you're going, and you can compare that to the speed limit sign to figure out, you know, do I need to push harder or ease up, or am I going to get a ticket, and all that kind of stuff. But self-awareness is really huge. It hit me like a ton of bricks probably 4 or 5 years ago when I first started this coaching journey. I think it was the Harvard Business Review had an article about they'd done a survey and they discovered that self-awareness was more valuable in the business world than even an MBA. And not an MBA is wrong, not at all, but they said that actually if you have an MBA without self-awareness, you're toast.
Right.
But if you've got self-awareness, doesn't matter too much whether you've got the MBA or not, you've actually got the beginnings, the foundation to build on to become a leader.
You mentioned self-awareness, and of course the big other buzzword around that is emotional intelligence. Everybody's using it.
Yes.
Nobody even knows what it is, but they like to use the word emotional intelligence. But you're right. I mean, and which is really unique. I think that's the other interesting part of where I am and what I've done in my life. I graduated high school and I had a career path of, okay, now what do I do? And I was already working retail, so I already had this love going, with retail. And I said, I'll take a year off. I'll learn some computer stuff. Well, I still am waiting to go back.
Right.
And one thing that I'm very proud of is I have 2 college degrees, but neither one of them are mine. I paid for both my daughters to go to school.
Very good. Yeah.
Without a college degree.
Right.
Now, again, so that idea, and I don't want to discount how important college is because I think it's valuable. But if you're not working on that other side, like you talk about the MBA and the self-awareness, one without the other.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I've interacted a lot with college students. I actually have a volunteer role at Coastal, the local university, and I see some students who understand themselves and they know themselves, and they're going to be just fine. And the college degree is going to be valuable to them. And I meet other students who are just doing the degree thing and have got nobody's helped them to know who they are. Or how they're wired or what they're made for in terms of a sense of purpose or destiny or whatever.
Well, I think that's like to me, that's like a societal problem as well, though, because to set the expectation that you're supposed to have this level of self-awareness about what your whole life is going to look like at 17, 18, 19 years old is just absolutely heinous.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's the age that colleges are capitalizing on getting these kids to sign the paperwork for these loans. I mean, I didn't know how to write a check when I signed my name to tens of thousands in student loan per year.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know the implications, or I didn't know what I was doing. No. In fact, I think my father did all of it for me. It's just like,
Yeah. Now, do you have a father like Tim's daughters who's going to get you through?
No.
Oh.
I didn't have the Tim as my father financially. I had some help. But.
Yeah.
Education is, again, I don't want to discount that. I think it's so critically important, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But, I think there was a big article written on LinkedIn a few years ago, why do companies support high-performing jerks? Right? I don't know if you ever read that.
I didn't see that one, but
it's a great article about how these people, through their education, get up the ladder. And basically, they're just terrible people. They're not self-aware. They don't have respect for others' differences. You're missing all the key components to what it takes to get through life.
Right. Yeah.
And so
because everybody's different.
Right.
And if you haven't figured out first, who am I? But then second, how can I respect and adapt to who you are?
If I don't know.
Yeah.
A great book, I don't know if you read, I just read a book recently called Surrounded by Idiots.
Oh, okay.
It is a wonderful book. Yeah. It really teaches you about red, yellow, blue people, and it really talks about who they are, because the real whole point of the book is you're not surrounded by idiots. You just think you are, because you haven't done your job in trying to figure out who they are.
Exactly what I exist for. You just summarized it in one sentence. Yeah, because having achieved the self-awareness, then the other half, out of respect, is to learn how to adapt.
Yes.
And I can think of dozens of people that I've been able to help, and me too.
Yeah.
I'm very different now because I've been on this journey to be able to connect with other people, to be able to adapt to other people. I found myself in settings where somebody's a very high thinker in terms of they're very intelligent, very inquisitive, very philosophical. That's not the way I'm wired. I mean, it interests me, but I'm not wired to stay there all the time. But I've learned to adapt into that zone, and I've gained from that. because now I can create a connection with somebody who is more of a contemplative kind of person.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I've learned to adapt to people who are very kind of type A, get it done.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
You know, the mover language, which is in the profile, we say that the slogan is lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's one of my lowest languages. You know, that rubs me completely the wrong way to have to be like that. But I've learned to be that way where I need to be able to relate to some friends who are much higher in that way. But it's out of respect, and it's out of being able to adapt.
Yes.
That makes all the difference.
Yes.
And I feel like my life is much more fulfilled because of that. And I think that's what drew me to want to have you in this conversation, because I feel like that's the way your life has gone as well. You know, that when I think about the shift, I realize we're coming back to the beginning again here. Yeah. The shift from being a corporate executive to running a gym for overweight old people and not calling it a gym.
Right.
Forgive me, I'm kind of pushing next level under the bus here. But
it's a great way to define it.
But I think that's a beautiful thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it shows me that there's been this whole process in your journey where you've learned to adapt, you've learned to respect, you've learned yourself. And you've seen something you wanted and you've gone for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, again, if we turn to the 25-year-old, 60-year-old over here, there's something about that same, that's, I think, where the connection comes for the two of you, isn't it?
It does. It does, because it was a crazy idea.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to doubt that. I mean, I go ahead and meet someone who worked me through my journey, my personal trainer, 23 years old, and I say to him, do you want to go start a business together? And we did. And so people did say, you're 60 years old, you're leaving a great career. Right. And because it was a good career. It was intense, but it was, from a financial perspective, it was extremely positive. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't, and I had some enriching moments because I was always a field operations guy. Okay. So the growth of people were so important. And I just had a great article written by a friend that's actually posted on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And he did a whole story, which you might be interested in. It's called, it's about our friendship and about the passion that we both have. He's based in New Jersey, so I'll put you onto that article. You'll learn a little bit about, in that article, I think you could learn a little bit more about who I am and why I do what I do.
Cool. I love it. That's great. So, Colden, let me just draw you in again. What changes have you seen in Tim since you got to know him and you two have been working together? What have you seen change in him as the studio has developed and as your relationship has grown? What things have you seen?
This is probably not the entertaining answer for the sake of the people watching the podcast.
That's okay.
But very little on like the fundamental core level, very little. I like that about people. Yeah. Like that is one of the things I respect about Tim is that, he is the stone in the river, and like as the river's flowing by and stuff's crashing in, whatever goes on, he's just there. And he's Tim through and through, and he's just gonna, if he's gotta smash his way through the wall, he's gonna smash his way through the wall. Like he had, the only thing that I've seen change is this business that was just in Tim's mind really at the start has actually started to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. So I think the beauty in that is getting to see the talent, skills, attributes that Tim had from the start actually get to come into play.
Yes.
That's what's interesting to me is to watch him and everyone. I very much relate to that as well because I think that some people could get caught up, especially maybe people that knew me growing up or people from my small hometown or what have you. I think a lot of people can get caught up in like, Colden, you're doing this, that, the other thing, podcasts, and you're all over the place, whatever. It's like successful, agency's good, this is good, you're doing all these other ventures. And like, you must have had to change all these different things. It's like, no, I just did a lot of the same thing with the same drive and the same purpose and the same tenacity for years and years and years.
Cool. Yes.
And then what happens is it comes to fruition around you, and then everyone kind of observing you from the outside in looks and they say, wow, look at this person, they've changed into this person. It's like, no, like actually it's a lack of change that enabled me to change the environment around me to bring in what I needed to bring in. Like for instance, with Tim, always has had just attention to detail that would just about drive you bonker. Like here's an interesting point here. I don't think I could ever be an employee of Tim's. I could be a great friend of Tim's. Right. I could be a business partner with Tim.
But it's
an
tough
employee, it would be tough.
Yeah.
But like he was there's just like little things like dust on this little thing, or this little shirt here is a little off in our merchandise section, or this chair is just a little off kilter. Watching him go around that studio when it was like no one was in there, or very few people were using the studio, and there was a lot of equipment that wasn't there that's there now. And like his attention to detail at that time to everyone was like, oh my God, Tim, like that doesn't matter right now. But see, it mattered to Tim. And now there are a lot more people in that studio enjoying that space. There is a lot more traffic just on a day-to-day basis. There is a lot of new equipment that was not there at the start. There's a lot of new added kind of just service details, if you will. He's got these towels that are they're embroidered with the logo, like all these little things. And you realize, like for me, I'm able to recognize that attention to the micro, minuscule details that pissed everybody off that probably worked for him at the start.
Yeah.
You will see it you just one walk through that place, observing and actively looking for it. And you'll notice those details sewn into every little thing in that studio. And it's all of these small details that are woven into this next level of mobility fabric that really makes up the full picture and the full experience that I think his clients just live for. I mean, you got to be in the space to understand. Yeah. But some of these people, you know, I have this one buddy of mine. His name's Major.
Oh my God!
And he was a sergeant in the military, so I call him Sergeant Major.
Yep.
And you know, Major he's what 78 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And you know, this guy, Vietnam War veteran, and this man you would think he's my age. You would think he's just in there going to town, working out debatably as ferociously as I like to work out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like throwing weight around, breaking a sweat, and he's just amped up. And it's so incredible to me to see that and be like, you know, like you can be the overweight 62-year-old that kind of wants everyone to leave her alone and have kind of a softer experience. Or like you can have one of them over on one side of the studio, and I look on the opposite side of the studio and I see this Major guy, and me and him are over there bumping each other, cussing, like having a blast. So it's really cool, and that's the way I observe a lot of what Tim is like. It's not what I've seen change in Tim.
Right.
Rather, it's the lack of change that I've seen.
Change, yeah. Which is just as important as what changes. Because what I'm hearing in what Colden's saying about you, Tim, is that you're a man who knows who he is and what he's here for.
You can say that.
What you carry, if you like, to be able to give to other people. And you stick with it. Right. And you've stuck with it until it's borne fruit. Even when it didn't to start with, or it wasn't apparent to start with, you stuck with who you are.
Yeah.
And which brings us back to self-awareness, of course. You know who you are. That's beautiful. I love that. And so let me turn the question around the other way. Well, let me say this first of all. You know, if Tim's hiring, you heard it here first, folks. Run away. I'm kidding. But
well, he does take care of his people very well. So I will add that.
Very well, yes. But so let's turn that around and say, so what, if any, change have you seen in Colden in the 2+ years that you two have been partners working together, business associates, friends.
What changes have I seen in him?
Or not. Maybe you see the same in him as he sees in you.
You know, it's funny because you just said something about sticking to stuff, right? And so I made up a word. I know it's not a word. I call it stick-to-itness. He knows about this word. I created this word, stick-to-itness. And I've seen people, and it's very frustrating to me when people don't have it.
Yeah.
Meaning they're all over the board. They're here, then they're there, then they're, oh, I'm going to do this. You know, they got 7 different names under social media, and they're this, and they're that, and they're the other. And it's frustrating to me. Where I think what I respect about Colden and what he respects about me is we are, you know, that rock in the river, if you will. But more importantly, I come from a place where I say to myself, I've always lived by this. It doesn't matter what happens to me that affects me. It's how I choose to react to it.
Right.
Or as a young executive, one thing that really impacted me is the circle of influence and the circle of concern. I don't know if you've ever been through that, but that's also a big thing. And it really impacted me, and it made me who I am today.
Sure.
As far as differences for him, you know, I think he is learning about himself. Even though he knows who he is, he is learning components of himself. Even though he's got a very old soul, he's still young, and his experiences are more limited than mine. I often say to people, I'm no better than anybody else. I just lived longer, right? I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
And so I think as he lives longer, so to speak, he's thinking and he's looking out there, and I have seen him look out there and decide who he's going to attach to himself, or not a person, but maybe a component of who he is, if you will.
Right.
And so I've seen that he's attached some components on, but very selective.
Yeah.
He is very selective. His circle is very small, but it's a very committed, loyal circle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like he's read the profile descriptions.
Yes. Yes.
He's coming out with all the words that apply to some of the higher languages in your profile. This is good.
Oh, good.
It's
No, I never saw it, so I have no idea.
I never even talked to him about it.
Yeah, right.
I think it's another interesting thing that, just going back to, I guess, the self-awareness component that I'm realizing as we're talking about all this stuff, is I think that my communication style in groups and the way that I connect with, the way that I like to observe and learn by just being a fly on the wall, by just listening, it also establishes it definitely establishes myself and my personality in the most raw and authentic way possible, which is for me to shut my mouth and not blabber or speak like I constantly see everybody else doing. That isn't who I am. But Tim, on the other hand, if you gave Tim, if we kind of said on the other side of this door is 300 people that are just dying to get to know you, maybe, just people you don't know, Tim would swan dive out there
and close the door.
And he'd be friends with everybody, and he would or at least connect with everybody.
Right.
And I think that it's really worked to my benefit, just kind of having this relationship with Tim as well, because the great thing is, if Tim and I are ever in a social setting, I'm observant, and I also want to learn quickly. Like, I want to learn, for me, I can very quickly assess if I know certain things about certain people, whether I'm going to have any relation with them at all.
Yep.
And so Tim's very good at extracting that information, and I can just sit there and listen.
So you two are working as a team.
It's basically like that without, I'm literally just coming to this realization, though, here on this podcast of that's a lot of why I will gravitate towards Tim at these networking events we go to. Just because, I know a lot of people now. I've built relationships. I've kind of built up a reputation for myself, at least locally. But if I was walking in a new room, I would just go ahead, Tim. you go first.
Yes.
Because he's going to have everybody talking about their personal lives. And I mean, I could see you bringing somebody to tears like your first time meeting them, just like extractor. He's an extractor, and
Yes.
that's not me. I'd rather just listen.
Right. Yes.
I'm more
So-
like covert op.
So here's what I see with both of you. You're both authentic, and you both have the integrity to stay being authentic, and you recognize your differences, and you respect each other's differences, and that's why it works. All of those components fit together in order that you are able to be beneficial to one another, as well as to gain from each other's experiences. And it's a beautiful demonstration of what this podcast is all about. It's helping people to understand themselves and to understand other people in a simple way that's not complicated, but to be able to take those steps, to be able to build bridges, to make connections, to build community, to be beneficial to one another, whilst not sacrificing our own integrity and our own authenticity. And you both have demonstrated that over and over in the answers you've given us. So I want to thank you both. This has been a fascinating and an educational conversation, and I'm sure it won't be the end, but I think for the sake of the listeners, we should wrap it up there. But thank you, Colden. Thank you, Tim. This has been a wonderful time together.